What is going on, guys? Welcome to the Legion of Impact. My name is Anthony, and I am here with my co-host Avery, in a different location, but we're here nonetheless. And eighth, ninth times the charm here with technical difficulties on the streaming end. Pretty frustrating. But today we wanted to talk about how the military kind of set us up in life, the things that we've learned, and how it kind of relates to business and just going throughout everyday life. And this is all in light of the Marine Corps birthday and Veterans Day. So just touching on that, I think we can start with maybe our favorite topic, which is leadership, right? I mean, leadership is, in my opinion, the most important thing because it translates to all walks of life. No matter what you're doing, it it relates to it. Um, and just working with so many different people in the Marine Corps from all over the globe, I think really taught us a lot about it, about leadership specifically, and how to lead men and women. Are
hmm
there some key things that stick out to you when you think about leadership in the Marine Corps?
Yeah, I mean the biggest thing about leadership that I personally learned in the Marine Corps as a leader is people first and people always, right? And we had a saying prior to every deployment that if you didn't have your shit squared away in your household, if your family wasn't squared away, if your finances weren't squared away, any of that stuff, then you wouldn't be squared away on deployment.
Yep,
Which you would be a liability. And that the same is true in business or in life or wherever in relationships. If you don't have yourself squared away, if you don't have maybe your finances or maybe your job or uh, any of that kind of stuff, you're a liability to every other aspect in your life.
for
And
sure.
so when I say people first and people always, on the leadership perspective, you have to pay attention to what's going on in your subordinates' life,
Yep,
right? The people you lead expect you to lead by example. And if you're not leading by example, number one, in your own life, but also caring about what's going on in their life, that's not going to be a successful deployment. That's not going to be a successful Marine when they become an NCO or a staff NCO, right? They're probably going to get out of the Marine Corps at that point because you didn't care about them.
yep.
So the first thing, and I think the biggest thing, is that people always come first. And when they have their shit taken care of and squared away, the mission is going to be 10 times easier.
Right. And so how do you do that though? How do you make sure everyone's shit is taken care of and squared away? Because I mean, one of the things that I learned kind of on that note is that you can't treat everybody the same way, right?
Mhm.
Because there's people who come from completely different backgrounds where if you say, in the Marine Corps, if you yelled at them, if you screamed at them, they're just going to shut you out. They're not going to listen to you, right? But then there's
Yeah.
some people who are receptive of that. So
hmm
and then there's some people who it's damn near impossible to get to. But I think as a leader, it's important to recognize those people who you can't communicate with because they're just not receptive
Yep.
of anything, and
hmm
completely take them out of the mission. Otherwise, they're going to be a liability
Well,
to that mission
yeah.
until they
There
learn,
there's
right?
always there's always going to be people that aren't going to be led, right? And in in that case, they're never going to be a good leader.
Yeah.
But leadership is not a one size fits all. You can't do the same thing over and over and over again with different people. That's not how human beings work.
Right.
And so it's a tailored approach. Just like just like in in real estate, buying a house is not the same for everybody. Your goal in buying a house might be an investment project, right? But if I treat you like you're a first time home buyer, I'm going to lose your business because I clearly am not taking the time to understand your wants and needs and where
Yep.
you are in relation to the process and where you are in relation to life,
Yep.
right? Um, so leadership's not a one size fits all. You do have to kind of cater to each individual person. Not to say that uh, some people get uh, preferred treatment or better treatment than others or anything like that. No, you just have to you have to treat them in a way that's conducive to learning for them.
Right.
Because you know, there's a lot of people go through school and they're an in-person learner,
Yep.
right? And they want to be in class. They want to do it that way. Uh, but for me, I would much rather do it online and do it on my own schedule and when I can at my own pace.
Right.
So you know, the same is true for leadership. You can't it's not a one size fits all. Uh, and you just have to take the time to know to learn the personalities of your subordinates, the people you lead, and figure out what's going to make them tick. Um, and that is a relationship process.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
not
it's
something overnight.
right. It's understanding and getting a full depth of understanding of the things that they care about, right? And also kind of diving into their life. Um,
Right.
because I remember one time specifically there was one kid who I wouldn't say he got picked on, but he always like did stupid things.
Yep.
So he'd get yelled at quite a bit, right? But there was one time in particular where I noticed because we are friends, but I got promoted faster than him. So there was a time specifically where I remembered that um or I recognized that he wasn't acting right. And so I told the other leaders, the other people in my rank, I think I was a corporal at the time, like, hey, chill out for a second on this dude. Let's figure out what the fuck's going on because he doesn't seem right. And so I went and I sat him down and we had a conversation. Like basically it was just like, dude, what's going on? Like you don't seem like your same self, and
Yeah.
he's like, yeah, like my cousin was in a flight over San Francisco and the plane went down and he died. And so that was something that was like eye opening. It was like, holy shit, these other people, the other NCOs, the other leaders in our platoon need to know this because if they're going to put him on blast, like, yeah, the mission still goes on, right? But if they're going to put him on blast, he's going to be far less receptive than he would be on a normal day. So maybe like take
Yeah.
it easy on him and let him kind of do things not at his own pace, but like kind of try and cater to him a little bit more. Just
Hmm.
be a little bit more I don't know what the word would be, just relaxed when talking to him because he's obviously in an emotional state right now.
Understanding, empathetic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and whereas if you're gonna yell at him, he'll probably break down.
but but part of that is learning and actually having a relationship and conversations with your people. I
Right? Yeah,
know
that
I
that's
know
what I'm
far too
saying.
Yeah, I know and I know far too many people that run a team, yet they can't tell you, their employees' kids' names,
Right,
right? Or maybe that's a little too far out there. They don't know that they have kids, right? Like, that's something that you should probably know. Like, is your employee, uh, gonna be requesting some time off to take their kid to a doctor's appointment sometime,
right,
right? And that can be indicative of, um, if maybe they're not responding the way they typically do. Right? I mean, is something going on in their life? Is it their kid? Is it their wife? Is it their family back home? Um, right? Like what's going on in their life? And if you don't take the time to actually build rapport and have a relationship with your people, you're not going to be able to um figure out. You're not going to be able to spot when they're having those difficulties, when they're
Right.
having that trouble. You're just going to think they're being a dick instead.
Yep.
So, you do have to have that relationship. You have to be able to, like, and I'm sure you being friends with that kid uh played into it because, not every manager, not every leader is going to be friends with their people, but they should have an understanding of what's going on in their life, or at least have a conversation around it, or be open to having a conversation around it.
Yeah.
But I'm sure, for you just being friends with him uh definitely helped in that situation.
No, it absolutely did because I mean, basically, with that given situation, it allowed us to be able to give him a little bit of time and, let him process things and just we didn't necessarily need him that day. So, it's like, hey, you got a lot going on at home, like go call your family, go do what you got to do. And, like we'll expect you to be back here, in tomorrow, and if things are still kind of crazy, then we'll talk about it type thing. We'll tailor it to the
Yeah.
situation, I guess. But without a conversation like that, without people actually knowing their people, or managers or leaders knowing their people, they wouldn't be able to have that conversation. They wouldn't be able to do those type of things. And basically, that's going to force that employee or that team member or whatever out of your team. Um,
Yep.
or go. I mean, in today's age, go file complaints with HR or something.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I
Uh
mean, the other thing is we see it in real estate where team leads can't even be approached by their team members because
right.
the team members might feel like they're too busy, they're bothering the leader or something like that, and they can't request information from them, they can't get answers from them, they can't even communicate with them. And
Right.
that's an issue because there's got to be
That's
that
a
comfort,
breakdown. Yeah.
like, yeah, you have to be able to have a level of discipline with your team or your employees or subordinates, but you also have to be approachable. You also have
Right.
to be the one that's there for them when they need you. Um,
Mhm.
and
Yeah, that
it's a hard
that's
line
that
for people to, yeah,
that plays into the whole concept around inspect what you expect, right? And I'll tie that in here in a second, but a lot of people uh will just bark out orders, right? They
right,
bark out orders and or tell their people to do it a certain way, or this is how the team does it, right? And they expect them to do that, yet they don't check in. They don't they don't have that open door policy where, hey, stop in anytime if you have a question. Definitely research it first, but if you have a question, feel free to stop in anytime. Um, they don't they don't do that, which leads the subordinates, the rest of, like, the team members, to seek out advice from someone else that's not necessarily their team lead.
yep,
Um, and if the team leader was inspecting what they expected, right, in business, in the Marine Corps is huge, they would come up on some of those things, right? They would be in tune to the fact that, hey, you're not there for us as much as we need you to be,
hmm,
right? Because I guarantee you there are things that they're dropping the ball on that the team leader has no fucking clue about.
right,
So if they were actually inspecting the, standards that they put in place, the processes that they put in place, so on and so forth, they would realize that their team members are unintentionally, to no fault of their own, dropping the ball. And ultimately, it's the responsibility of that leader because they're not around as much. And
right,
so when you inspect what you expect, you're forced to come up with a solution. And you have to figure out where that solution is going to come from.
Right.
typically, if you're a good leader, it starts with you.
Yeah, for sure. And so that leads me to thinking about the like evaluations, right? So evaluating, you say inspect what you expect, but more or less, I guess, in layman's terms, evaluating, right? And you're looking at maybe the job performance of somebody. And so when it does come time to, like, a leader should be setting up regular, whether it's weekly, monthly, quarterly, whatever, meetings with each of their subordinates, one-on-one
Yeah.
time, and then maybe a team meeting as well, trickled throughout there. But what used to drive me crazy, and it still happens because I was on a real estate team that kind of did this, right? Was it would come time for, and the job that the 9 to 5 job that you and I both worked, this happened. You'd call a meeting, right? And basically the point of the meeting is the evaluation. Hey, how am I doing? Or hey, I'm going to let you know how you're doing if you're the leader, right? So
Right.
when you go in as a subordinate and your leader is telling you, "Oh yeah, you're like everything you're doing is great. Keep it up. Keep doing what you're doing, and you should be in line for promotion or whatever." Like, if you're a leader and you're telling your subordinates that all you have to do is do what you're doing, then
Yeah.
that is, for one, that's a mistake. That I mean, it's completely irresponsible as a leader, because when it comes time for promotion and that person does not get promoted, they're going to come back to you with a paper trail basically saying, "What the fuck? You told me I didn't
Yep.
have to do anything. Just do the same thing I've been doing for the past 6 months and I would get promoted. And now I'm not getting promoted, so you lied to me. Like,
Yeah.
what the hell?"
That that actually happened with me, I would have these reviews said I was doing fantastic and that I should start looking at some promotional positions and whatnot. And then when it came time for raises, um,
You didn't get
I
them.
got the standard raise.
Yeah, right.
And also when I asked for a higher raise for more money, they told me, "Oh, it doesn't really work that way."
Yep.
And it's, "Well, you're telling me all these great things, like I should be promoted and all this stuff. Why can't you just why can't you pay me more? Right? Why can't you promote me and pay me more? Right? So why are you telling me all this stuff?" And so the evaluations, the evaluations are um all of that is resemblant of a leader who has nothing else to talk about. That
Right.
what that really tells you is that they don't watch you hard enough or long enough um to actually uh determine whether or not you deserve a higher raise or not. Right?
Nor
Like
nor do they
they're
think
not doing.
right, nor
Go
do
ahead.
they think of their role as a leader as important. Because if they thought that
Right.
it was important, then they would be jotting down notes and stuff every time that they saw you doing something, and they would correct that. They would let you know what you're doing well and what you're not doing well, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, it's
You know,
100%.
with that said, I actually had a Marine um who she she kept fucking up. And we had our weekly meetings, and I had kept notes on some things that she wasn't doing wrong, but just that there were better ways, more efficient ways to do it that I don't think she knew about. And so I would write in my notebook, talk to so and so about this,
Yep.
suggest this concept or idea or whatever, right? For me. Well, there was a situation where I was out of the office and I needed her to grab something for me and bring it to whoever. And she grabbed the wrong notebook and she read through it and she saw her name in there and she got upset. And so I was like, okay, yeah, that weekly meeting maybe should have been dealt with that day. right? Those specific instances maybe should have been dealt with that day. And to that point, that's correct, right? There are certain things that need to be addressed right away.
Oh, for sure.
And there are certain things that can wait until the weekly or biweekly meeting or whatever
Yep.
it is. Um, but there were a couple things in that notebook that probably should have been addressed right away, and she got upset that it wasn't, because she did that same thing every single week or the whole week. And that was my fault as a leader, where I felt like I failed her because I didn't give her the proper feedback, um, in, a reasonable amount of time, right? The feedback loop in leadership is not always gonna be that weekly cycle. It's not
Right.
always gonna be biweekly or monthly. Sometimes it's daily, sometimes it's weekly, sometimes it's fucking every 6 months,
Right.
right? So, we need to make sure that we're tailoring our feedback loops, um, situation dependent, right? Situation specific, because it's not always just going to be that weekly meeting. And I feel like too many leaders, and I did, get hung up on that weekly meeting.
And yeah,
And so we
and
need to make sure.
they just wait until that meeting. And I mean, I remember it. um I
In the
remember it
Marine
at
Corps,
Harris.
that could be life or death in the
Oh,
Marine
for
Corps,
sure. For sure.
or
And
successful mission or failure.
yep. Um or I mean, if in a leader's case in the military, if you're tasked with briefing the battalion commander to um for you guys to be slated to go out on a mission, to do a mission over another unit, right? I mean, it's critical that you can discuss things like that. If your team is fucking up, right? You need to handle that right then and there. Because if that battalion commander comes back to you and says, like, hey, what's going on here? And you're saying, oh, sir, I don't know. I'll wait until the weekly meeting I'm going to discuss with them. You know, he's going to be like, the fuck, like, we're not
Yeah.
sending you out on that mission then, because there's that gap that you have there in
Yep.
leadership. And so that 100% determines your capabilities as a team.
Yeah.
If you can't handle it
Yeah.
right then and there, and it's a serious situation, something that needs to be handled, and you decide to
Yep.
wait, I mean, that could be critical to mission accomplishment, or whatever your project is at work. you know
Yep.
um Same thing in real estate. I know you always yell at me about urgency, right?
Yeah.
um and in real estate, if there's a part of a contract or something like that is fairly time sensitive, or if there's something that's going on that's time sensitive, it's not like, hey, wait until a lot of people have a weekly follow up with their clients, right? Where
Yep.
they reach out every Friday, or they call them every Monday, or whatever it is, right? Here's your updates, Mr. Seller or buyer or whatever. Well, sometimes that has to be that day, because if it's not
Mhm.
that day, you're going to miss a deadline, and then the deal's going
Yep.
to fall apart. And when the deal falls apart, now you no longer have clients because they ditched you. So,
Yep.
you know,
Yep. Well yeah, that's, all the way, on Shoreway, all the way up until, um, they ended up getting a contract. I'm fucking breathing down this buyer's agent's throat, uh, or neck, I mean, to see if he could get his client's home sold, right? And, like, I guarantee that he hated me, um, because I'm texting him every single day, multiple times a day, asking him if he got a contract. And when he told me that he didn't get a contract that day, it's okay. Well, why? What are you doing wrong? What's going on with this listing? That why isn't the house selling? Right? We need this contract because otherwise our sale over here falls apart.
right,
Right? And so then I'm doing all of that, and then we get closer. right? Like pretty fucking close to the deadline where he's like looking at an extension, and then all of a sudden you become urgent about it.
Yeah.
And like, well, where the hell was this the last 3 weeks trying to get the contract?
Well,
So anyway,
yeah, what's that age-old saying of, if you want somebody to get something done, schedule a vacation or something like that, right?
yeah.
Because they're gonna hold off all their work until they have 3 hours before they get off work for their vacation, then they're gonna get everything fucking done, right?
Yeah, well, you know, actually, what I did in the Marine Corps all the time is, if there was something I had to delegate, which you should delegate a fair amount, um, but if there was something that I had to delegate, I would and it was time sensitive, I would
Give it to the
typically always
busiest
give
guy.
it to the busiest person. Yep.
Yeah,
Um, because they will find a way to get that done,
yeah,
plus whatever it is else that they have to do.
right.
Um, the busiest person is typically gonna be the most go-getter.
Yeah,
And when you're a go-getter and you have urgency, it doesn't mean you're a bulldog, you know, y like a bull in a china shop or whatever you call it, but you're hustling to get shit done, right? And you don't care how you get it done as long as you get it done.
yep,
And that's the biggest thing with, like, people that are busy and with leadership is, like, you selectively choose those people that are so busy because you know they will not have analysis paralysis,
yep,
right? That's not even gonna be a fucking factor because they have so much to do, they can't afford to have analysis paralysis. And, I find that for me, some of the best decisions I make are when I'm the busiest.
well, it's
Um
it's the concept of ready, fire, aim, right? It's
Yep,
it's you take the shot and then you readjust, right? And
yep,
you re-zero in. But
yep,
real quick I wanted to touch upon is like, Jocko talks about it at all when you're talking about uh talking to that agent trying to push him, to get going or whatever. Jocko talks about the dichotomy of leadership, right? Where
yep,
it's kind of a fine line where if you're pushing too hard, then that
yeah,
person's just gonna be like, you know what, fuck it. Like, I really don't like doing business with this person, or I really don't like dealing with this person. We're gonna back out. We're not gonna meet the deadline, or whatever. If you're too light on them, they're not gonna get it done because they don't care enough. They're not urgent
yeah.
enough, right? So you have to find that delicate middle ground where
There is.
maybe they're going to be a little bit like agitated, a little bit pissed off, but they're not so mad where they're gonna just shut down or leave or get out of the
Yeah.
deal or whatever. But they're gonna work to get it done. Um,
Well,
so
there is a
thankfully,
way to
I
there's
was
a
gonna
way
say,
to instill that urgency.
yeah, I was gonna say, thankfully, it sounds like you did that with this guy. But I mean,
Well, this is
it
also a
didn't.
guy that we want on our team,
Yeah,
and so with him, it was like, "Look, man," and he's a newer agent, so he is looking to me for a lot of advice too and asking me questions and whatnot, and I knew that as long as he's engaged, then I can continue to push him.
yeah,
As soon as he starts to get frustrated, I ease back, right? Like, you don't want him to be frustrated. You don't want him to think like we're not on the same team because we're on the same fucking team, right? We're all on the same team trying to get the same fucking goal done.
right,
So
right.
the second he starts to believe that we're not on the same team is the second I failed him.
Yeah, for
So,
sure.
throughout the process, it's just a matter of, hey, man, look, we all have a common goal, right? We have a common goal. We need to get this to the closing table, uh, but we need to pick up the pace because otherwise we're going to have a very difficult conversation with our sellers,
Yep,
right? And you can frame that in any way you want, but I choose to frame it in like, hey, I don't want to have that conversation with my seller because frankly, they didn't want to take this offer.
right.
right? Like, let's say it how it is, right? Like, it's a contingent offer. It's not the greatest thing out there. We could probably go and get something non-contingent. Sure, 5 grand less, right? But we could probably get something non-contingent. So my seller didn't necessarily want this offer, but we saw the value and the benefit in it. So we just need to pick it up so that I don't have to have that conversation with them,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of like you're playing to their level. Like, "Hey man, I wanna help you.
Yeah.
I wanna help you. I just need a little bit more."
Yeah, so
That's
on I mean, I think it all kind of ties in together, but I'd say moving forward, like the job of a leader is to render yourself obsolete, right? So you leaders create leaders. Or I mean, real leaders create leaders. So,
yeah.
I'm thinking as a corporal, right, in the Marine Corps, just keeping it on the military theme. As a
Mhm.
corporal, my job is to instruct and train and inspire lance corporals and PFCs and privates to want to get promoted, to want to do their job, to want to lead their peers. Because it's
Yeah.
not just up to a corporal to be a leader. It could be a lance corporal, it could be a PFC leading a lance corporal, right? So your job is to create other leaders as a leader. Um, and the way that I would do that, um, and I think everybody was extremely receptive to it, was giving people uh, an opportunity for leadership. So you put them in leadership roles so that
Yeah.
they can get used to that. And what you do is you don't hover over them, right? You're not like a what do you call it? A helicopter parent type thing, right? But you're there in case they have questions, or you're there in case they're about to fuck something up majorly, that you
Okay.
can kind of catch that and coach through it, right? But you're not there instructing them how to do every single thing. You're letting them kind
Mhm.
of take the bull by the horns, and then you're acting as like, the little guardrails on the bowling lane,
Yeah.
like when you're trying to teach a kid how to bowl, like, or that
Yeah.
little rope thing between the skis on new skiers, you're there as like a guide, but you're not there to do it for them. You put them in that
Mhm.
position because you think they're capable, and you're
Yep.
trying to coach them through. But so that's how I would do it. Did you have any other ways of trying to inspire or create other leaders in the Marine Corps?
Honestly, it was just, um, leading by example with high standards.
Yep.
Um, in my shop, uh, we had a storage place for everything. Um, one thing I had learned from Wegmans way back in the day, in one of my high school jobs, was a process called simplification, and where you label fucking everything. Um, like your keyboard has a label on it
Yep.
that says keyboard. Like it has a spot. There's a spot for your keyboard. Like dumbing it down to the lowest level. Um, that was one thing I instilled in my shop, and I did that so that my Marines knew the standard that I was conducting business, or the standard that I was living by every single day. And that's it's the same for PT. Like, you don't have to be some god and do a million pull-ups, a million sit-ups, and like the fastest run time, but you never bitch, right? You're always motivating everyone else. You're always there on time, and you're always putting in 110% effort, like, until you fucking pass out, right?
Yep.
So you lead your shop a certain way, you lead PT a certain way, you live your personal life a certain fucking way, um, that signals excellence to your subordinates, and when they see that, it becomes second nature for them as well. they start
And
to follow suit.
yeah, and it gives you credibility as a leader, right? Because
Right, and
you
because
if
you're not telling them to do something that you're not doing yourself.
right, exactly. Yeah.
And, one one company that I'm extremely inspired by every single fucking day is First Form. Um, every package that you get from First Form, comes with a handwritten letter on the invoice, right? And it's addressed to you. It's talking about the product that you purchased and how it's going to help you obtain your goals. And the branding, um, like their gym and their facility, the weights are put back a certain way, right? The numbers are always facing up so you can clearly read it. Everything's in line. They will not let you back in the facility if you don't re-rack your weights afterwards,
The right way.
right? So
Yeah.
the right way.
Yeah.
Uh, and if you're a guest in their facility, they watch how you do that and they'll never invite you back.
Yeah.
Um, and so those high standards, um, that is prevalent through Andy though.
Yeah.
Like Andy does that shit. He owns the motherfucker and he could go there and leave every last weight out there, and no one's gonna say shit to him, right? Well, at first form they might say shit to him, but
Yeah.
the guy's a billionaire, right? So who's gonna go and yell at him for not racking his weights for a place that he owns,
Right.
right? But he does. And he wipes down every machine after he uses it. He racks the weights the way that he expects it, right? So everyone sees exactly what he's doing every single day. And that inspires them to do it the same way, to do the same fucking thing, to have the same level of excellence in their
Yeah.
life that he's putting out.
And I think what you're touching on too, maybe without implying, is brilliance in the basics, right? That's kind of a Marine
Yep.
Corps term as well. Brilliance in the basics, and that's literally it's forming your habits um, down to the nitty gritty, right? It's doing the small things the right way and doing it well and making that a
Yep.
habit because those small things, if you focus that much on the small things to do it well to a high standard, that's going to trickle on up to the big things. And
Yeah.
not only that, but those small things stack, right? You talk about habit stacking and um they stack and they ultimately build a big snowball, and
Yep.
that is the I guess the magnificence of a quality job,
Yep.
a
You know,
great
it's
result.
I got a funny story. So I'm framing my office space and whatnot, right? You can see this, and um, my office is done now, and I framed. So my buddy is in the construction industry, and he's the one teaching me how to do all of this stuff. Um, and I framed a wall by myself, and it wasn't a standard wall where it's all just like, one plate is straight across. Like I had to go around the ductwork and all of that stuff. So you have to do some bracing and other things. And so I start building this wall, and I thought it looked pretty good. It wasn't fastened in or anything to the joist or the floor. Um, but I thought it looked pretty good. And he comes over and he starts laughing at me, and he's like, "Hey man, that's not how you're supposed to do it. We can make it work, but it's not going to be, the greatest looking wall, and we're probably going to have some hiccups when we go to drywall it." And so I was like, well, if that's not the way it's supposed to be done, let's fucking tear it down. Like, I know I cut these 2x4s, I know I cut the plates, like everything there, like I already did so much work to put that wall up, but let's tear it down, even if I have to go buy more lumber because of it. Tear it down. I want it done the right way. Um, and in all reality, it's not a load bearing wall, right? So nothing, there would be zero consequences of leaving the wall the way it was, the way I
Yep.
built it. There would be
Yep.
0 consequences. We would get through the drywall. It would be just fine. Um, we'd figure it out. But I want it fucking done right. And I wouldn't be happy with myself if I didn't take the extra time to actually go and build that wall correctly.
Right.
Um, I'm not as down to the nitty-gritty as I would love to be, in many areas of my life, but I'm working every day to get better at that. And that I feel like is a fantastic start because it's a lot of fucking work. It's a lot of
Yeah,
work to build a wall. Like I give construction guys a lot of credit.
and you know that you would go down there every single day, and you would know in your own head
Yep.
and your heart that I didn't do this the right way. This wall is not.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's up, and maybe I
Yeah,
painted it
and no
and
one
put
would
some
ever
things
know.
on it,
No
and
one would
nobody
ever
would
know
know.
except for me.
But that's weighing on your conscience, right? And so sometimes, but most of the time, that is the worst thing that you can do is when you know something is fucked up, but you just you let it stay that way, right? And
Yep.
so I think going back to the leadership conversation is if you're a leader that if your subordinates see you fuck something up and you keep it that way or you just leave it as is, you leave it fucked up,
Mhm.
they're going to they're going to recognize that, you know?
Yep.
They're going to notice, and then what's that going to do? For one, that's going to discredit you as a leader.
Yep.
And everything that you tell them, they're just gonna be like, "Yeah, yeah, fucking right." Like, I don't believe that, or because I saw you do this, this, and this. It also
Yep.
leaves room
That's
open for them
integrity.
to do it too.
Yep. And that's integrity,
Yeah,
right? Like it's easy it's easy to go and do the things that you need to do in front of someone when someone's
right.
watching you. That's super easy to do. What's not easy to do is when you're the only one that knows about it.
Yep,
When nobody else knows and you need to go fix it, right? That's when you have real integrity.
yep,
And then also playing into how you can help some of your subordinates, that plays into confidence too, right? When you're executing on the promises that you make to yourself, right? That is going to increase your confidence far more than anything else will,
yep,
right? Because it's so easy. Like let's say you're deadlifting, right? Like you try a new PR. Let's say I don't know, call it 400 pounds, and you can't pull 400, but you pull 395. You might if it's just you might walk away from that bar and say, "Nah, fuck it. I can't get that extra 5. Like it's all
yep,
good." Right? And that's going to decrease your own confidence unknowingly, but it's going to decrease your own confidence. But if somebody else is there, right? If someone else is there and said, "No, man, you told yourself you were going to fucking hit 400." Right? So get on that bar and fucking pull. Right?
yep,
You're going to go and you're going to pull, and then your confidence is going to be that much higher because you broke through a barrier that you otherwise would have walked away from.
right.
Right? So doing that with yourself is going to show your subordinates that they can do it with themselves too.
Yep,
That they can increase their confidence just by executing and keeping the promises that they make to themselves.
right, right. Yeah, I love that. So we talked about basically it was what 30 minutes of well 45 minutes almost of leadership. What else from the military or the Marine Corps in general do you think that you've learned or picked up that has kind of helped you in business or just in life in general? So I think if I were to start, I know I just asked you, but if I were to start, I would say work capacity, right? Because in the military, you don't get a fucking chance to take a break. If you need to
Right.
if you need to work, then you need to work. It doesn't matter. If in
Yeah.
especially if you're a leader, then you're
Mhm.
working longer than everybody else. And so
Yep.
real quick going back, it just popped in my mind. for the leadership topic is I just want to mention that leaders eat last, right?
Yeah.
I think that's important because going back to the very first thing that you said is putting people first.
Yeah.
Um, it's showing your people that you care about them getting their food before you, right?
Yep.
If the food were limited, hypothetically, if Thanksgiving, right? If your Thanksgiving meals are limited and the food is running out, who's going to be the one who gets less of whatever, right? It'll be you. And
Yep.
as a leader, that is how it's supposed to be, right?
Yep.
Um but so I just wanted to touch on that because I see that so often within our families and you know, throughout life that everyone's just so quick to go get their food and it's such a simple thing. It's so silly,
Yep.
but it makes a huge difference. And in this world, in the civilian world, people won't even recognize that. They don't even
Right.
recognize, oh, you know, he's always last to eat. They just think it's something that you do. You're just last to eat. Like,
Yeah.
no, it's for a reason, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah,
Um,
when these dads go and they are the first ones to grab the food,
yeah.
right? Like, I don't I don't know. I know that there's plenty of food there, but, that's I don't know, it's
Mm,
selfish. Like,
make sure
from a
everybody's gotten what
leadership
they want
perspective.
first. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, okay, so moving back forward now, got to take a step back to get two steps forward. Um, what is something else that you think you've picked up from the military that helps in
Well,
life or business?
y yeah, so I think, like, I think it's Jim Rohn that says it, could be wrong on that, but, "Don't wish that it were easier, wish that you were better."
Yeah.
Right? And that was a big thing for me, in PT, right? Because I've never been a runner. Um, we got pretty decent at running, but that was never my strong suit. And then y- there were some mental hurdles that I had to get over because I was in the data side of things. Um, and so anytime that I'd have to pull up a database or add to a database or anything like that, I'd get confused mentally because of my dyslexia. Um, and so part of that was like, holy shit, this is fucking hard.
Yeah.
And you want to give up. When it gets hard, you want to give up. Um, but if you just tell yourself that you need to get better, you take ownership of it and you go and you actually do get better, right? Like you study, you train, you practice, you do all of those things to get better. Like that is fucking powerful. And
Right.
so in real estate, when you're having a bad couple of months, um, don't fucking sit back and pity yourself because it's hard.
Yep.
Just get better,
Yep.
execute more, practice more, right? Like a lot of success in general is just a numbers game, right? How many fucking times are you going to try? Right?
Yep.
And every single time that you try, you unknowingly get better. You say something a little bit different, or you say it in a different way, or a different voice or tonality, right? And then you finally succeed. Um, that's,
it's
I think for me, that's probably one of the biggest things is just like, don't wish it were easier, just wish you were better.
I mean it's what you were just saying is kind of like that, you know, that meme where you got the two little characters like one they're both digging for gold or whatever, but the one like stops super early.
Yeah, yeah,
Or no, the one stops like right before he gets to the fucking
right
gold,
before he hits. Yeah,
and he jumps out of the hole or whatever. Then the other guy actually gets the gold because he like dug one scoop further, right?
yeah,
It's just wishing you had put in that extra rep, right? That would make you
yep,
better. Um,
yeah,
and so I
and
think,
that's
yeah, go ahead.
and that's. I have this book here, The Power of One More,
Yeah,
right? That's the premise behind that book by Ed Milet is one more rep, right?
Actually, go back to
Just
and grab that
one.
book real quick. You can continue talking. Just hold on, hold on to it for a second because I'm going to touch on something. But you can continue your thought. Finish your thought.
So not gonna hold it there. No, I was just saying the whole premise of it is just one more rep, one more try. Even if you hit the amount of reps that you say, let's say you're working out, right? Because it's an easy metaphor. You're working out and you say you're gonna do 12 reps. Do fucking 13 because that 13th rep is what's gonna break you past that barrier. That's gonna increase, like you were saying, that's gonna increase your capacity for the next round, right? You're gonna be able to push more weight longer, right?
and
So
the dude that you're competing with is not doing that 13th rep.
right.
So it's putting you one
Yeah.
rep above.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the whole I think it was a diamond mine, but the gold mine thing
Yeah. Yeah.
where they're hatching away at the in the mines is like man, if you tried one more, if you had one more swing in you, one more fucking breath in you or one more piece of effort in you, um you would have got there, right?
Yep.
You would have had the riches. And a lot of times for a lot of people, they just give up too soon. They don't fail, right? They ultimately end up failing because they quit, but they don't fail. They just give up too soon.
Yep.
And so like Will says, right? You have to take quitting off the fucking table.
Yep.
If you take quitting off the table, then you can't fucking fail.
Right. So it's funny that you just mentioned him because open up that book there on the first page and put up to the camera what it says.
Can't read it, but
Yeah, so it says pivot, right? Will wrote pivot. So
yep,
I take that as improvise, adapt, and overcome, right? That's like a Marine Corps motto. Improvise,
yep,
adapt, and overcome. So no matter
hmm,
what kind of challenge you face in life or in business or whatever, like you have to figure it out. Everything
yeah,
in life is figure outable, right? So
right,
you just have to figure out how to fucking do it. And it's using what you got where you are, with
hmm,
the time that you have, and just getting through that, forcing yourself through it and overcoming that challenge, whatever it is.
yeah, and I think one of the things that separates you and I from other realtors, right, in the real estate industry is the whole concept of everything works and nothing doesn't.
Yep.
Right? There's so many people out there that they want to get good at one thing. They just go all in 100% on one thing. And that's great in some areas of life, but in many areas of life, you just need to do enough, right? Like you need to do something else that your competition's not doing. And if you're doing that one thing that your competition's not doing, you're going to stand out. And for us, it's YouTube, right? Nobody in our area is doing YouTube.
Yep.
Nobody in our area is doing Instagram Reels like we're doing. Nobody in our area is pushing out the educational content that we're doing, right? So everything works and nothing doesn't. If we didn't do any of that, we wouldn't be set apart from our competition at all.
Right. And it's
So
not even that the results 100% have caught up yet, right? But it's the
oftentimes they're delayed. It's
and that's
consistency
it.
that
Yeah, it's the
creates the results.
they're lagging indicators, right? Where you got people coming up to you in the store. I
Yep.
I recognize you from somewhere. Where
Yeah.
do I know you from or whatever.
Yep.
And then that triggers your mind. Well, I know where you saw me. It was social media. Um or it's people reaching out to you like, "Hey, I saw this one video. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?"
Right.
Even if they're not buying or selling right now, you know,
Yep.
they're that seed is planted, you know.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, everything works and nothing doesn't. And yeah, I mean that's a good point because it's where you can separate yourself amongst the competition. That
Yeah.
and increasing your capacity for more. So the piece that I had said when talking about additional things the military is taught is increasing your capacity to do more. So to put more work on the table, right? Without without bitching about it, um without complaining, without shaking your knees basically,
Mhm.
It's just you just put your head down and keep doing it. And
Right.
it's I think that we have the mindset of, yeah, let's add some more to it, right? Um
Well,
there there
the
is
the Marine
there is
Corps.
a concept there's a concept of getting distracted, right? If you're doing too much. But
Yep.
if you're I mean so many people can only handle certain buyers, right? A certain amount
Yep.
of buyers or a certain amount of
Yep.
listings or whatever. It's like, no, I mean, you can increase your capacity for more, for one, right? By getting used to doing that much, figuring out systems and processes to deal with
Yes,
that.
that's what it is. Yep.
And you can just handle it, improvise, adapt, and overcome, right? Figure it the fuck out and
Yep.
deal with it. What were you gonna say though?
The the Marine Corps is great at subtly increasing your capacity. Um, every rank, right? Every rank has a certain level of responsibility. And when you're a lance corporal, you're in charge of PFCs and privates, right? When
Yeah.
you're a corporal, you're in charge of lance corporals, PFCs, and privates,
Yeah.
right? And so on and so forth up the chain. And so every rank that you get promoted to, you have a little more capacity, so on and so forth. And if you actually want to be really good, um, you you intentionally increase your capacity before you hit that rank, right? That's
Right.
like where the meritorious promotions come into play and
Yeah.
stuff is like, hey, I've already accepted this responsibility prior to having the rank,
Yeah.
right?
I'm
So
already
and
leading
that
these Marines or these people here. Like,
yeah,
yeah.
and that's the point of, like, success is a lagging indicator, right?
Yeah.
Whatever that success is, that's a lagging indicator because you're probably already doing the things necessary for success, before it actually catches up before the money catches up with you or the
And
title or
yeah.
the status or whatever.
And that's actually a great point that I've been wanting to talk about for a while now is you hear so often people are saying, that's above my pay scale, or
Yep,
that's not in my job description, right? And
yep,
so they don't do certain things because it's the manager's level right above them. So
yep,
they don't lead other team members because that's the manager's job, or
mhm,
their boss or whatever. We would hear in the Marine Corps, I'm not a corporal, I can't do that, or I'm not a
yep,
sergeant, I can't do that. It's like, no, you should be doing that. You should be. You
yeah,
should be doing the work before you're supposed to be doing the work. That's
yep,
the only way that you can ever be recommended for promotion. It's the only way you can ever be recommended for a real leadership position and actually given that
yeah,
title, right? Is because you're already doing it, like you just said. And a lot of people set themselves up for failure and stay mediocre forever because
mhm,
they fail to recognize that, and they fail to actually step up when people are looking for them to step up because it's not in their job description. They're not getting paid for
right,
it yet, you know.
right, yeah,
And
yeah,
as
and
far as I'm concerned, if I'm going to get promoted, like if say I'm a manager and I see somebody already doing that position and I'm in charge of or I have a certain amount of pull within the company, I'm going to go to the hiring manager. I'm going to go to whoever my boss is or whoever's in charge of maybe HR or something and
yep,
request that they get the upper end of that pay scale when they get promoted
yep,
because they've already been
yep,
doing that job.
yeah,
And people don't recognize that there are leaders like that who are going to be looking out for you if you're putting out for them, you know?
yep,
So I think that's
yeah,
important.
and I would even add on to that and say that right now, uh, let's say you're in the military. If you're a corporal, you should be taking on responsibilities that a staff sergeant should be having,
Right.
right? I so Andy Frisella talks about this all the time that there's so much competition in that next phase, right? Uh in, money, anywhere from 100,000 to 500,000, there's a huge pool of people that are aspiring to make that amount of money, right? Out of college or in their business or whatever the case is. The competition is far less when you're talking about 5, 6, 7, 8, 20, 30,
Yep.
40 million, right? So if you're a corporal and you're trying to increase your capacity to do the level of work that a staff sergeant's doing, your competition on a meritorious board is going to be far less because everyone is so focused on either trying to take the responsibilities of a corporal or a sergeant,
Yeah.
right? If they're motivated and they want to go a step above, they'll be trying to take the responsibilities of a sergeant. But if you're a corporal, you should be trying to do the staff sergeant's work or
Yep.
responsibility, because you're going to set yourself apart. There's far less competition in that realm because no one else wants to do that work. They're
Right.
so focused on what's next, right? So you won't pick up the rank of a staff sergeant for a little while, probably 5 years,
Right.
right? That's typically seems to be the gap. But if you become a sergeant and now you're looking at a gunny's responsibilities, you're you're gonna be fucking stellar,
Yep.
right? So
I
you're
I I
probably gonna be the finest Marine out there.
I think about it kind of like you're climbing a ladder, right? Where if you actually think about climbing a ladder, do you really put your feet and your hands on the same rung at the same time?
Mm-mm.
You never do that, right? You never put both hands on the same rung either.
Right.
And so when you're climbing, one hand is always one
Higher
rung
than the other.
above the other hand, right? And then you keep bounding, basically,
Yep.
right? And so each time you bound, that is metaphorically uh uh the second higher position, right? The
Yep.
one that nobody else is going for. Um and I mean there's less people at the top. That's
Yep.
that's just fact, you know. There's
That's
less
why they say
sergeant
it's
majors in the
lonely.
Marine. Well, yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, there's less sergeant majors in the Marine Corps than there is sergeants, than there
Yep.
is lance corporals, right? It's easier to be mediocre, bottom
Yep.
tier, you know. It's easier. It's the triangle, you know. It's or a pyramid, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
A whole
Far
shit
more
ton
at
of
the
people
bottom.
at the bottom, and then one person at the top, or 10 people at the top. Like
Yep.
that's just how it works out.
Yep.
But you should always be the one trying to bound and escalate. You know, they always say dress for the job that you're trying to get or that you
Mm.
want, right? You go in and you dress like the CEO, you know, pretty soon you'll be there. You'll start
Yeah.
thinking like that, you'll start acting like that, you know.
Yep.
But
Yep.
do you have any more things that you want to touch on before we sign off here?
No, man, I think the biggest thing is, with leadership, it's always, always, always people first. Um, and
And
when you start taking
integrity
people,
driven.
yeah, and
Yeah.
when you start taking people first, putting people first, and inspecting what you expect with them, right, and actually leading by example, and with integrity, uh, things are going to change for you. People are going to respect you. People are going to want to follow you, right? And they won't care that you're the leader. They're going to just naturally want to follow you,
Yep.
without any title, without any fucking title. And then when things get hard for you, just wish you were better. Don't
Yep.
wish it were easier. Just wish you were better, and get to work
Pivot.
on that execution.
Yeah,
Yep.
pivot, adapt, improvise, and overcome, or improvise,
Yep.
adapt, and overcome. It starts with knowing yourself, right? It
Yep.
starts with knowing yourself and seeking and desiring to be better. Um,
Yep.
because if you don't have
That's
that
I mean,
desire,
it's
then
a leadership trait. Know yourself
yeah,
and seek self-improvement.
yeah. If you don't, I mean, if you're not cognizant of your faults, right, your downfalls in your leadership ability or your professional skills or communication skills or anything like that, there's no way you can
Yeah.
possibly get better at it. you know?
Right.
So it's you have to recognize that. And then there's no way that you can help other people within that realm too if
Right.
you don't know how to do it and you've never been through it. So
Right.
I think it's all important. But guys, we just wanted to kind of touch on those things in the light of Veterans Day and the Marine Corps birthday. I think that it's always important. I think the military is a huge system for learning, you know, even if you don't stay in for 20 years or whatever. I think that there's so much to be learned, especially at those lower ranks, the lower levels, that can really set you up for great success in the future in whatever civilian realm you're pursuing. Um,
Yep.
you've got a lot of the soft skills and a lot of the hard skills that most people don't have. They're not being taught that in college or in high school, right? You only get it through the hard work that is the military or say law enforcement or something like that, right? You're only getting it through those type of professions. Um,
Yep.
and so the second best thing that you can do is learn from it when you hear about it, you know?
Yep.
Or study or read books about it. You know, Jocko Willink is a
Yep.
good one. Um, there's a lot of other good authors that teach this kind of stuff, but we just thought it would be beneficial to everybody to talk about what we learned coming from, you know, two normal dudes who are trying to do big things in the world, I guess. So that being said, if you have nothing else, I have nothing else, guys. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. Subscribe on all the whatever platform you listen to podcasts on. We will have the video episodes coming back out again. I think we figured out these technical kind of glitches here, so hopefully everything is good. Hopefully you guys can watch it and listen to it at the same time. That'd be pretty cool. So
Yeah.
we're on all platforms, of course. Drop that subscribe. Follow us on Instagram at Real Avery Hamilton and Anthony M Hamilton. Um, anything I'm missing, Avery?
Nope. That's it.
One thing, as much as we love recording these podcasts, we would love even more to help you in your real estate needs. So we are licensed realtors in the state of New York. Um, so go ahead and, you know, drop us a follow or give us a call or email. Just throwing in that quick call to action because we haven't done that on the podcast yet.
Plug.
So what's that?
Yeah. Quick plug.
Yeah, quick plug. So be sure to call
We
us if
don't
you guys need
advertise,
anything.
but
We're
we
always
did.
here. Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're here if you guys need anything. Just let us know. We're looking forward to the next one, guys. See ya.
Bye.